folks. I'm Bobby Carlton. I'm the publisher and editor-in-chief of Lioness magazine and the founder of Innovation Women. Today, we are having I think, an important conversation. I am talking with Amy Spurling. She's the founder and CEO of Compt. And we are talking about some of the changes that it seems like our country, USA, is headed into because of the dismantling of the protections that were offered by Roe versus Wade for the Supreme Court. And Amy, you and I have talked previously. I think we're both on the same page that this is a profound change for women and others in the workplace. And, this is something that companies are addressing. And you guys must be so busy with helping these companies address this issue.
We are. It's happening real time, right? Like the reversal of Roe went into effect less than a week ago. Companies are scrambling to figure out how they're going to support their teams. And we're in very uncharted territory here where finance, HR, legal, a big part of their job is compliance. And now a lot of very big companies are coming out very publicly saying, we don't care what the law is. We are going to support the needs of our team. And so figuring out how you actually operationalize that is a very tricky situation with a lot of laws, both federal, HIPAA, taxation, not to mention the state laws that we're dealing with as well. So it's a very dynamic situation right now, but it's been very exciting to see how many companies are coming out saying, listen, we're going to take care of our people. This is critical. People need to be able to get access to healthcare.
Okay, I'm going to take us back for a minute, and I'm going to ask you to fill everybody in on why they are coming to you and Compt for this conversation.
Sure. So we build employee perk stipends. In good times when there's lots and lots of money, companies are doing all kinds of things with employee perk stipends as a way to differentiate, attract, retain talent, everything from just, hey, support yourself in whatever way you want, stipends, to wellness, to remote work. What we're seeing right now is a lot of companies putting stipends in place for out-of-state care. So putting things in place that say, hey, if you have to leave your home state to receive medical care, and some companies are getting very specific as to the type of medical care, others are going much more broad. But if you need to leave the state, here's a way for us to financially support you to do that. And so we're working with a lot of companies on that, actually hosting a webinar next week to help companies understand, look, it's not going to be risk-free, but here's some ways you can kind of mitigate and reduce some of the risk in setting those types of stipends up.
Yeah. And, obviously this is incredibly complex because different states now have different laws, and trigger laws have come into effect.
That's exactly right. So, we're operating as if everybody is Texas, is basically my approach. Take the most conservative approach, assume the worst case scenario, which Texas is pretty much up there with a worst case scenario in this, and then work backwards from there. Because if you're operating as if every company is taking the most egregious approach, then you can plan accordingly. And then it's a happy surprise when some states aren't doing that and you can still support people.
Now, Texas, abortion laws had come into effect and into the national consciousness earlier.
Right.
Were companies already going down this path, or did Roe v. Wade trigger them to say, okay, we now have to make changes?
Texas was headed down the path, but it was in the courts. So it hadn't been fully kind of implemented yet. With the reversal of Roe, that triggered it. And that's when companies snapped into action. Because it's not only Texas. We're dealing with that in our own team. We have team members in Arkansas. We have team members in Texas. We have pregnant people and people going through IVF in both states. And so they had immediate impact to the care they could receive as of Friday. And these are things happening in real time where doctors aren't sure what they're supposed to do next. So that's where companies are snapping to action. And it's amazing to see, departments that traditionally want to have a lot of crossing of T's, dotting of I's, let's figure it out, and then roll out a plan, making very fast decisions and moving and putting action into place because they know that people's lives are at risk.
Yeah. All right. I feel like this is something that requires leaders. This is a thing that we are going to be looking to certain companies, certain people. Can you point out some of those real, true leaders? Like, who are we looking to for guidance on this?
I mean, I think that is still, some of that is still to be determined. I mean, there's a lot of really big brand name companies that have come out very publicly and said, hey, we are taking a big stand. I think Katie Burke put out a pretty amazing post last week, or maybe it was earlier this week. Time is definitely lost on me, where they're like, yes, you know, at HubSpot, we are definitely going to be taking care of our team. This is going to be for abortion care, stating very publicly that that's what that's going to be for, and making like no two ways about it. We are going to take care of our people. That has an impact. And so, you know, people like Katie Burke, I think, are an excellent example of a leader in the space. There's other companies who are also doing this, you know, big brands. I don't want to call anybody out specifically, because the other part of my comment is a lot of those companies have also supported a lot of organizations, political leaders, made lots of campaign donations that got us where we are here today. And so there's a lot of things that it's like, okay, let's figure out who the true leaders are who are going to help us forward. Any help right now, I think, is good help, but there's also a lot of leaders who, or a lot of companies, I should say, that have played both sides of the fence, which have put us in a position where millions of women have the potential to lose their lives.
Yeah. So obviously the travel for medical care is one thing. Are there other points that are coming up in these conversations, or is it just focused on that at this point?
Well, it's the travel. It could be the childcare that you may need. I mean, obviously hotels and flights and cars and all that type of stuff is being included as well. Some companies are trying to navigate, all right, like it's really hard to determine if you roll this out to everyone, how do you know that somebody is eligible? Like eligibility is a huge issue. If you have 100,000 people on your team and say, hey, everybody's got $4,000 and it's honor system, that's really hard to manage as a company. And it's very expensive because you don't know who's using it for a vacation versus somebody who's actually taking advantage of medical care. We're at Compt, we're doing it on the honor system. We're much smaller. That is a lot easier to have those conversations with the team and be like, this is the purpose. And we know your heart is in the right place. Use it in the right way. And I have no concerns on my team. When you've got 100,000 people or even 1,000, that gets a lot more difficult. So they're trying to figure out how much documentation do we really want on what you're doing, because it's not flowing through health insurance right now. Our company is actually going to be reviewing health insurance, what would have been normally a health insurance claim. Yikes. Like, there's some HIPAA stuff that comes into play there. It's a very complicated situation that we're in right now.
Yeah. All right. What things should we be looking to happen over the next little while? I mean, are there going to be, you know, for example, we're both in Massachusetts, mm-hmm. and Governor Baker signed an executive order. I mean, are we going to be seeing more things like that? And I don't know how deeply you've gotten into looking at that.
I think it's going to be interesting. I do think that more and more states that want to make sure that these protections stay in place are going to be putting laws in order. I think what's going to get very, very interesting is intrastate rights. So what state has what right, who has jurisdiction? If somebody leaves the state to get care, can Texas sue me in Massachusetts for helping somebody leave the state of Texas? I mean, I don't know, like, where does Massachusetts come into play? I think there's going to be a lot of battles around states' rights with this. And then obviously with the midterms, it depends on what happens with Congress and what gets codified at at that level versus going to states' rights. I mean, there's a lot of unknowns right now, which is where I really applaud companies that are taking a stand, regardless of what you did previously. If you were taking a stand right now and supporting the need for women to get healthcare immediately, that is a right step in the right direction. So that is a good thing. And that, I think, should be applauded.
Yeah, I actually told my team if any of them needed to be bailed out, I was ready.
You in Patagonia, they put a stipend in place, not through us, but they put money in place that said, hey, if you need bail money, we got you if it was a peaceful protest. As a company, we haven't put a bail stipend in place, but I have messaged several people on the team and said, hey, I personally got your back if it comes to that.
Yeah, but being the owner of the company, I feel that I can say that, and
Right.
they will know that I will come for them. Me and my mini are on our way to save you. All right. So, laughter aside, not a laughing matter.
Not at all.
Was it dark humor? Yes.
Yes.
Recommendations. What are steps that companies and individual managers can take?
I think right now it's going to be important for companies to not get too deep on the analysis paralysis side of things. There's going to be risk with this, regardless of how you approach it. There's no way to remove risk and stay in compliance with the laws as they're written right now. So make sure that you are taking steps to support people, and realize you're not alone. Everybody is trying to figure this out. I'm getting approached with questions about this all the time this week, because literally every company is scrambling to figure out what they do with this. No one has all the answers of what the best approach is. We're figuring that out together. So talk to people, help figure this out. Benefit brokers have been massive in this space of trying to help their companies. We've seen lots of benefit consultants do the same. There's a lot of community as everyone tries to figure out, all right, how do we make sure that we take care of the people that are on these teams?
Great. Okay, folks, on that note, I'm going to end this conversation, but obviously the conversation is not at an end overall. Thank you so much, Amy, for dropping in to talk to us about this today. Such an important topic.
My pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.